Hi everyone! Today I thought I would use a new product from the mini catalog called the Pick of the Patch, and it's really fun. It has a punch that goes with it, and I always love anytime a stamp set has a punch. I just think punches are fun. I don't know why. I think you know, they're just quick, instant gratification. So I really enjoy punches, and so hopefully you will too. I like this set a lot. It's got a lot of cuteness going on. I love this little bird. So obviously the punch only punches out a couple, the ones on the side here, of the pumpkins, but you can also use your scissors and cut out some of these other shapes. They're very simple shapes, and you can still add the stem from the punch to any of them. You've also got this little branch, and you can put some leaves on it or surround it with some other little leaves, or in the fall the branches tend to be a little more on the empty side anyway, so you can just add a couple hanging leaves if you want. I like that they've added a little jack-o'-lantern face so that you can turn your pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns. That's really cute, and I like that little bird. Little curly cues. The sayings are really cute. You're the pick of the patch, and cutie pie. I like to make pumpkin pie. So anyway, I think it's a really fun little stamp set, great for scrapbooks and for card making. So I thought I would at first make a little card with it. Now I also want to play around with another product, and that is stencils, or Stampin' Up! Calls them decorative masks. And I have to try to get myself to do that. For some reason, I just want them to be stencils. But I thought I'd play around with that as well, and I am using this one. You can see I've used it already quite a bit, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave it as is because I've already messed this piece of paper up, and I thought I will just continue using the same one. So let's do that, and I'm going to use a newer color. So I've got a new stamp set, new paper punch, new color, and this is called Copper Clay. It's not super new. It's not as new as this. This has been around since the new annual catalog came out in the spring, so it's not super new, but relatively new. Alright, so I'm using Copper Clay ink and Copper Clay cardstock, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of do a tone-on-tone effect with that. So I already have made a couple because I need some fall cards, and so I put a little bit of my adhesive. I just kind of put a little dot of my adhesive on there just to kind of hold it in place, and then I put my mask down. Now you can use a variety of things, and I just, for some reason, I wasn't thinking, and I cleaned all of my blending brushes in one day, just this morning, and therefore they're all very damp. They're still wet, so I can't use them right now. I should have only cleaned half, because you can use them even when they're dirty. I have one that I had used with brown. I could have gotten most of the ink off and used it anyway, and I just wasn't thinking. I don't know what I was doing. So now I have no blending brushes today. I have a lot of them, so I don't know why I felt the need to clean them all. I was just in this like cleaning mode, which is rare. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and use this little sponge I had laying around on my desk. So I'm just going to ink it up with the Copper Clay, and I am also grabbing a little scrap paper because I get messy and I don't want my hands to be inky later. So I'm just going to, I picked up some ink with a sponge, and I am going to go over it like so. And I am just, you can tap or you can kind of go around in a circle. I taped the mask down at the top just so that it wouldn't move as much. And then I wanted to hold the bottom. It just makes me feel more secure. So here I go. And of course you can do this as dark or as light as you want. You can just kind of do a very smooth, ghosty looking outline of this, or you can really get in there. I'm kind of really getting in there and getting that pattern. Now this pattern is part of a set of decorative masks called Abundant Beauty, and this is like a houndstooth. I think that's what this is called. If I'm wrong, you let me know, please. Houndstooth pattern. And then there's also a snowflake, and then this leaf, and I did a leaf one in a different video, and it looks like this. Really fun. That would be good with the pumpkin stamp set also. You could go either way, but I really like that. Here I tried to use a few different colors, so it kind of had fall colors. And then there's a sunflower builder, and that's a set of 4 masks that go together to build this. And I have a whole separate video on this if you are interested in how to make this really beautiful sunflower. So that's that. But right now I want to focus on these pumpkins, and I wanted to really use this pattern. Okay, so I think I've got enough. You can always lift it up and see. I do. Okay, so I can. And I only put a tiny bit of glue on there, so I'm okay with moving that. I do need one more, but I will do that later. Actually, I'm going to do it now because I'm set up, but I'll just fast forward so you don't have to watch the whole thing. All right, let me get rid of this. And this I can use again. All right, so I've got two pieces that are all patterned up, and I think that's really a fun look. So it's just kind of like making your own patterned paper, and I imagine this would be really fun if you did this with Versamark ink. That's that real sticky ink that you can emboss with, and you could make a gold houndstooth, or even if you used clear embossing powder on top of that, then it would kind of be a shiny pattern paper. So anyway, that's what I've got here, and then I'm going to layer this onto Pretty Peacock. I love Pretty Peacock. It's one of my favorites. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so I should tell you my measurements before I go too much further. The copper clay piece is cut at 5 by 3 3/4, and then the Pretty Peacock is 5 1/4 by 4. Okay, and then I'm going to layer that just straight down onto a base of early espresso, and I can go ahead and do that. I always like to glue things together right away. Some people like to get everything done and then glue. I like to glue right away because I always lose things, and I want to get anything glued down I can. Okay, now I've also got a couple pieces of Pretty Peacock, and these I cut 1 1/4 wide by 5, and they are going to go right down on top, and they're going to go almost, they're not quite center, they're lower than center, so stick it center and then kind of bring it down a little bit. Okay, so that is my background. My background is done. Now I need to do some stamping, so I'm going to set these aside, and I'm going to pick a saying that I want to put on here. Now I did a sample earlier with the "You're the Pick of the Patch," so I'm going to do a Harvest of Blessings for this one. Oops, stamps are gone, so that means they're out here somewhere. The problem with them being clear is that I have a hard time seeing them. Here they are. Okay, I think that's this one. Okay, and I'm just using a 1-inch piece of Very Vanilla. So I'm going to grab my scrap bag. I love when I can just grab my scrap bag. I don't know why. I feel like I'm being, like I'm using up my scraps. It makes me happy. Okay, and I want to find one that's 1 inch thick. Okay, there's a 1 inch thick, and it needs to be at least 5. That's definitely at least 5. So this is 1 inch Very Vanilla, and I am going to stamp the sayings, but I'm going to kind of bias it towards the right. So I'm going to kind of make the end hang off towards the right. There. Easy. And then I'm going to cut this at 5. So here's 5 inches. Cut that. Oh, I needed 2 of those. I forgot I was making 2 cards. I'll have to do that. I'll do that in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to glue that down. I have to say, lately I'm really using my glue a lot as opposed to the tape runner. I don't know why. That glue is just so simple to use, and it's not the same as Elmer's glue where it's like hard and crinkly when it dries. It's really nice. So I am using that liquid Tombow a ton lately. It's my go-to. Okay, so here's that. Now we need some pumpkins. So again, I'm going to grab my scrap bag here. Let's see what I've got. I would like to do 2 different color pumpkins. So I brought in, of course, pumpkin pie. And my ink pads are like this because of me. They don't come this way. This is not how Stampin' Up! Sends them to you. This is me. I paint with my stamp pads. I paint with my ink all the time. So my ink pads kind of look like that often. I think I need to put this, I try to look at the direction of the punch to see where it would be best to position my image, and I think that works. And I wonder if I can fit this guy on here. I can, so let me put, oh, you know, it almost gave me, but I didn't allow it to give me a stem. I should have punched it all the way through. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and use that copper clay that we used already. I think it's okay to still have copper clay on top of there. Now see, this is how they normally look. I just haven't painted with this color yet. Pretty much, I'd say 90% of my pads look like that. A big mess, but I love it. Okay, I'm going to go with this. Wait, let me see if I'm holding this. How do I want my, yep. So that's a little dark, but it'll dry a little bit later in a second. All right. Okay, now let me see if I can punch out that little stem all the way. There we go. Normally, I stamp and then punch out. It's really hard to line up a stamp once you've already punched it out. However, I did some of these stems earlier and I did a pretty good job, so I'm not going to worry about it. And earlier I was on this like punch or inking frenzy and I stamped a ton of these leaves, so I'm going to go ahead and just use the ones I already stamped instead of stamping them in front of you. Might as well. I need them, so I'm going to use them. So here I always like to look at how this is laid out and then look for scraps that will allow me to cut that without, so I love using up my scraps like I mentioned. And so that is a fun way, oops, upside down, a fun way to use up your scraps is just kind of see what'll fit. And I don't necessarily need all these leaves at the moment, but I'm on a roll. Okay. Let me see if I can do these stems. Now that I'm doing it with video rolling, I bet I will not be able to do these stems. So I'm going to grab my early espresso and see if I can't line these up. Ooh, look at that. I did it. One more. There we go. Okay, now on the since I have these things out, on the inside of my card, which I'm going to place a very vanilla panel inside because my base is very dark. It's early espresso. Plus, I like to have a second color on a panel anyway, even if it was a light color, just because I think it just looks more finished. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp on here as well. Let's see if I can get a nice little pumpkin going. And you can do 2 pumpkins, 1 pumpkin. I think I'm just going to stick with 1 pumpkin so people can write. You can have more space to write your greeting. Little stem. Okay, now in the stamp set, they give you 2 different leaves, which I really like for the pumpkin, but only one works with the punch. So since the outside of my card, I used this one a lot. For the inside, I'm going to do this side view leaf. Switch things up a little bit. There. So there's my inside. I've got pieces for my outside. Well, let's put it together. Okay, I'm I'm gonna go ahead and attach this while it's here. You know, my theory on that. I'll lose it if I don't, or I'll muck it up somehow and dump it into an ink pad. Something will happen. Okay, so that's going right down. Okay, now for these little pumpkins, I'm gonna use dimensionals and glue dots. So for the bigger pieces, I'm gonna grab my dimensionals. Now, the card I made earlier used the "You're the pick of the patch" sentiment, which is smaller in length, shorter in length. And so this one is a little bit longer. Let's make sure I can still fit both pumpkins. I think I can. I'll just overlap them a little bit more than I did on the other one. Maybe I'll tilt it slightly. It's leaning against that one. Okay, so it still fits. And then for these tiny little stems, I'm going to go ahead and use glue dots. For those of you who have not seen these glue dots on a sheet before and you're wondering, I've had people ask me, where do I get those fun glue dots on sheets? They actually come in the paper pumpkin kits that Stampin' Up sells, the monthly subscription kits. And I often, like I said, I reach for my liquid glue. So the Stampin' Up always sends spots, even if you're not gluing something small in the paper pumpkins, just because it travels better. You know, it's easier to ship and store, and as opposed to a giant thing of glue. And it's probably less expensive for them to send a little sheet of these as opposed to an entire bottle of glue. So in the kits, you get these. And I like them for these little small things a lot. And I use them all the time. And anyway, normally the glue dots come on a roll. That's why I'm mentioning it if you haven't seen them. Okay, now these little guys, these little leaves, I'm going to use dimensionals, but dimensionals, I have two different sizes. These are the big ones, and I'm looking, here they are, for my small ones. Okay, and I'm going to add two leaves, and like I said, the punched ones are both the same. They're both kind of, you know, it's the same leaf. So I'm going to have one facing up, and then this one, I think I'll have like it's going downward. That way that looks a little different. Although that's like, maybe I'll put this one over here. Yeah, okay. There we go. So it's pretty much done, but there's a few things I want to do. I want to add a little more detail. So I'm going to grab some embellishments. Now I was looking through my embellishments, and there is this called In Color dots, and this is the copper clay right there. And so I thought about using those, and I did that on my other sample. But then I remembered that I have these, and I thought they might show up more because this color is just spot on for this color. And these are slightly different. So you've got kind of a deeper color, more of a copper, a gold would be good. I don't know that I would use this one. This one I might save for some more wintry looking things. So this is called Neutrals Adhesive Back Sequins, and I think maybe I'll use this instead. So let's open it up. And then I'll show you the other one and you can see which one you like better. Oh, I also want to add a little linen thread. Here's my linen thread right here. A little linen thread, just kind of like as if it's, you know, the pumpkin. If you've ever grown pumpkins, you know they have these little tendrils that kind of come out. And so I think I am going to, I'm just kind of going to distress it a little bit. So you can kind of roll it up and curl it a little bit, and then I will have it kind of coming out. So I'll use a glue dot. Let's see what I do with my glue dots. Alright, so I'm just going to stick a little bit of glue dot, and I love using this little pokey tool because I can kind of shove it underneath. Now I want this to behave, so I'm going to attach it to the end of that glue dot. Then I'm going to come around and make it attach again, just because I want this to be curling, because those little tendrils on those pumpkins, they kind of curl around, and so I'm just kind of manipulating it and making it do what I want by using this glue dot and just making it smaller. And then I'm just gonna stick it there. So it's kind of like doing a little loop-de-loo. As long as you don't get that, you know, make that glue dot as skinny as you can so it doesn't, you know, stick to your envelope. There we go. Okay. All right, I want to use these. Now, do I want the darker ones or the coppery ones? So I wonder if I should use all one color. I know I want one of these two, so let's just go for it. I'm going to go with the brighter one. And there are two different sizes, so I am going to kind of, I try not to overthink where I put these sequins, but it's hard. All right, so I'm going to put two there, and then maybe one down there. Well, maybe that's enough. Maybe I'm doing what I said I didn't want to do and overthinking it. I'm overthinking it. I'm just going to put that down. Stop myself. I normally like to do threes or eight or odd numbers, but I think I'm okay. All right, so there. What do you think? So here is the sequins that are a little brighter, and then here is the one where I used the in color dots, and you can barely see them. See, that's what I was talking about. Here's a little tendril, and oh, inside this one, I was playing around with the idea of stenciling on here. I might put a pumpkin on top of that because I'm not loving that too much. So I'm going to put a punched pumpkin on top of that, I think, and see what that looks like. So here is my first play around with the pick of the patch. Hope you like it. This punch is super fun. I can imagine just making a whole patch of pumpkins. Be great for scrapbooking. All right, thanks so much for watching. Bye.